few weeks, the lectionary has been taking us through the stories of King David and his life leading up to becoming the King of Israel. Last week, and I don't know what Phil has been preaching on, we heard the story of David bringing the Ark of the Covenant containing the tablets with the 10 Commandments and Aaron's walking stick, the one that became a snake for Pharaoh, into the city of Jerusalem. That ark had gone with people through their 40 years in the wilderness and had been the focus of worship for them throughout their journey. And now it was safely located in the capital of Jerusalem, where the tabernacle, their portable church, had been set up. And today we hear that David wanted to build a permanent temple. He had a palace for himself, and he thought that the ark, the visible sign of God's presence in their midst, should also have a permanent home. That seemed to make sense. And so Nathan's initial thought was to bless that idea. But God's response to Nathan, which Nathan then relayed to David, was not so. David was not going to build a house for God. We have one of those interesting word plays here. God would build a house of David, establish a dynasty of kings who would rule over the nation of Israel. The promises for David are clear, but so are the promises for the people of Israel. They are to be given a place where they will be planted after wandering for 40 years. They have a home. They can put down roots, or they will not be disturbed or attacked by enemies. The nation will be safe. After 40 years of wandering, 40 years of wondering about the future, they will be secure. God promised to take care of them. Now, we tend to think of the image of the shepherd as a pastor, as a spiritual leader. But throughout Scripture, that image is much more frequently used of the king. David, the shepherd boy, becomes the shepherd of Israel. In many ways, this is what Paul is talking about as well. The heart of this long discussion about the Gentiles, the non-Jews, is that they are no longer strangers or aliens, foreigners. They are part of God's family. Because of that, the Gentiles, and that includes all of us, have been given peace, and we are being built into a house for God. The core of these passages, as abstract as they seem to be, is in these stories about Jesus. His disciples had been busy taking care of all the people, and they were tired and hungry. Jesus calls them to come away for a rest, and they climb into their fishing boat to go to a deserted place. there's a problem. The crowds figured it out. And they take off on foot and beat all the disciples and Jesus to their private picnic grounds. Jesus had compassion on them, just like he had compassion on the disciples who needed a break, because he saw that they were like sheep without a shepherd. Sheep are, I'm told, I'm a city kid, are incredibly stupid creatures. Some of you have more knowledge of sheep than I do. Apparently, if they don't have somebody to lead them, they can get lost, they can get caught in bushes, they can get themselves in incredible trouble. They need somebody to look after them. So Jesus had compassion on these crowds. Despite the need that the disciples had for a break, Jesus met the needs of the crowd, teaching and healing them. So the question that I think we bring to these passages is, what does this compassion that God showed the people of Israel, that Paul extended to the non-Jews, that Jesus showed the crowds, have to do with us? Well, first of all, the reality is that that's the same compassion that Jesus shows, that God shows to us. No matter what happens to us, we are not alone. We are also part of God's family. We're not strangers, we're not foreigners. We are not left without a shepherd. We are protected and cared for, even in the midst of tough times. Second, and this hardly needs saying here at 4th Street, we share the compassion that God has extended to us, to those around us. We don't have to look hard to see people who are feeling like strangers, who are hurting in some way, who need to know that they are a beloved part of God's family. That's something that 4th Street is really good at doing. You reach out to folks through the open door. That's what you're known for, not only in the Presbyterian, but I suspect throughout the wider community. And that's something to be proud of. Now, does that also carry through to your noticing co-workers or neighbors who are ill and need a hand with the kids, or a casserole when they're sick, or just a listening ear? Sometimes we look at mission as something that happens at church and forget about those occasions when it touches our personal lives.